Hello and welcome to the Two Robbies Podcast, your destination for in-depth discussion and analysis of the Premier League and the Champions League. I'm Robbie Mustoe, he's Robbie Earl, and today we break down week 32 of this crazy Premier League season. Arsenal have to fight back from a 2-goal deficit at home against bottom of the league side Southampton to rescue a draw 3-3. Newcastle smashed Tottenham 6-1 to give themselves some distance in the top 4 race. Liverpool beat Nottingham Forest 3-2. Forest sit in 19th and haven't won their last 11 matches. Leicester win, Leeds lose, and Everton draws. The relegation battle continues to be tight. And we look at the results from the 2 semi-final FA Cup rounds. That's what we've got coming up in today's episode.
Well, good stuff, mate. As ever, what a weekend. Started on a Friday night football and took us through to Sunday. We got one day off and then we got a mad midweek coming up with the biggest game of the season in there. But let's rewind, mate. Let's rewind to Friday night football at the Emirates. Top versus bottom, Arsenal versus Southampton. I wasn't working this one. I had a couple of things I had to do in errands and running, so I was kind of picking up a bit of the game and watching a bit on my phone and hearing some things, and I'm thinking 2-0 down, what? Can't quite believe it. 3-1 down, what? Can't quite believe it, with 2 or 3 minutes to go. And I think you said at the top of the show, Rob, Arsenal rescue a draw 3-3, and I'm kind of thinking rescue a draw doesn't sound great in terms of where Arsenal were coming into the game, but based on some of the facts and what we saw and how it ended up, in the end they probably were pleased to get the point. I know late on, I think it was the Trossard shot went over the top, and maybe many Arsenal fans were hoping for one of those dramatic, emotional kind of endings that we've seen. But final whistle blows, it's a point apiece. Not the way that Arsenal would have wanted to go into the game against Man City, coming off the back of 2-2 draws where they'd gone ahead in those games, Rob, and couldn't hang on.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite remarkable. I think everybody thought, Rob, us two included, that this was a chance for Arsenal to get a good victory at home, get the feel-good factor back. Of course, after the game last Sunday, wasn't it, against West Ham United, it was 2-2. Before that, they drew a Liverpool 2-2.
Yeah.
And the Liverpool 2-2... kind of understandable, frustrating because they were 2-0 up, and when you're 2-0 up, you hope to go on and win it. But Liverpool at Anfield, okay, that wasn't ideal, but it was a point. You're disappointed with the game against West Ham United, but this, Rob, when you start putting these together, you talk about blip, you talk about, well, that's okay, then well, that's a little bit worrying. This was something different, and when I'm watching it, Rob, at 2-0. I'm like, this feels like a collapse from Arsenal. Their game's fallen apart. Yeah, there's a couple of players that weren't playing. We know that Saliba's a big miss for this team now. The longer it goes on without him in the side, his effect becomes more and more. Fabio Vieira played in midfield. Granit Xhaka, I think, took ill, Rob, just before the game or the day before training, couldn't play. Yeah. Vieira struggled to come into that midfield position. And also, to add to this as well, is the Ruben Selles, the manager of Southampton, Rob, the day before I watched the press conference. Yeah. Basically said, we're going to go there and we're going to press high. We're going to try and win the ball high and score goals. Well, I know that Arteta would have prepared and stuff, but that's what they said they were going to do. And to be fair, they did it, Rob. Southampton pressed them. They won the ball back from the very first unexplainable error from Aaron Ramsdale, Rob. That I don't know, the mindset. I tell you what, Rob, I'm going to throw it back to you on this one because we, when we're in the studio, we get pictures for everywhere, of course. And we showed, I think we showed it at half time, that the Arsenal players in the tunnel before coming out were laughing, Rob, and having a little giggle, and Ramsdale was giggling with Elneny and a couple of players. I mean, I'm not throwing a lot onto that, but I'll tell you what, it was interesting because you had Martin Odegaard, captain, at the front of the group, deadly serious, looking straight ahead, focused, and then the 3 players behind that were kind of laughing and joking around. And then when Ramsdale makes the mistake, maybe I'm adding 2 and 2 and getting whatever number, but you always take a look at the look of the players in the tunnel before they come out.
That's kind of my thing. I like
anything in there.
I like to get everybody in the right place. I like to look along the line. I like to think everybody's focused in on the job. It's a difficult one, because what I would say is I don't know if Ramsdale is that person. We know in a dressing room you have the guy who jokes around and think that's just his way of dealing with the nervous tension. Others, much more serious, like myself, I like to focus in, start visualising what we got to get into. It could start the first minute, it could be 90th. So yeah, it's hard to sort of, as you say, add 2 and 2 together and make 5. Yes, when you see the start. Yes, when you see the Ramsdale kind of error really in judgment to play the ball in there. It gets nicked from Southampton, they score. It changes the whole complexity of the game. It's interesting, Rob, because it's almost as though, as I watched the game back, it felt to me, watching, as though it's the first time all season I can feel City breathing down Arsenal's neck. It's as though they're around now, and Arsenal know they're around. They can see them, they can smell them. It's affecting their play, it's affecting their movement, it's affecting their energy. And this is a bit, and I've got to keep going back to our buddy Lee Dixon, who's been on many gantries, and many times he's said, there'll be a time, guys, you just got to wait. There's going to be a time when people get affected. And it's how Arsenal deal with how they get affected. And at the moment, what I would say, of the 3 games now, no wins, no victories in those last 3, going into the game against Manchester City, where they did have a substantial points lead, and it's now not looking that way. It's almost as though Arsenal have put hurdles in their own way rather than City. City didn't play this weekend. They were playing in the FA Cup semi-final, which obviously they've gone on to win. So it wasn't like City had played first again and got the points and put the pressure on Arsenal. This was Arsenal kicking off first, team bottom of the table. We know he's coming off 2 draws that maybe, certainly the West Ham one, more disappointing. Chance to go and get a clean sheet, get a few goals, get ready for City, and it didn't happen, and they've hurt themselves. And yes, Saliba is a massive miss, and we can't look beyond that, because, as you say, the longer it goes, the more he's missing. Somebody can come in for a game or 2, but it isn't the case now. Zinchenko was back in the team. At times, I think, when you're in possession, he's got the ball, and you're playing with confidence. Couldn't be a better left-sided player in the country. But times when you need the defending side, and that's why I wasn't as big on the Tierney last week and that from that side, because I think Zinchenko's not a brilliant one-on-one defender. Theo Wilcock gets in down that left-hand side, beats Gabriel, scores a lovely goal, and all of a sudden Arsenal against it. So while I try and make a few excuses for certain things, Rob, most of this is on Arsenal's doing, and most of this is because Lee Dixon said there's a time when you'll be affected, there's a time when City will be on your shoulder and you'll feel them, how you react to that. And at the moment, it now puts us in a position, Rob, where Arsenal have to go to City and win. Mikel Arteta talked about it. At one point, we're talking about maybe they get a draw, they still hold control, they've got the points. They have to go to Manchester City and win the game, not only for the points, and I talked in a show, but for the power, what it means, the feel, to feel that they've got some control, some momentum in this title race. They have to go to the Etihad on Wednesday and win the game.
I think you're right, Rob. It's got to be painful for those Arsenal fans of the way that they've lost control of this. I mean, lost control. They still, of course, it's in their hands. They win every game. They're gonna win the title. Yeah. They've just lost that power, I suppose, or the favouritism on it, and in the way that they've done it. By making silly individual, just bad decisions, bad mistakes. It's got to be so annoying if a team plays out of their skin, or somebody knocks it in the top corner from 35 yards or something. That's what's frustrating. I kind of felt, Rob, that when Arsenal really needed their best stuff, they haven't been able to get it. And back to Lee Dixon's point, I remember him saying, we won't really know how this young team handle it until we get way down the road.
Yeah.
And down the road is now.
Yeah.
And, back, Rob, you said that, the way that they played. Arsenal have been playing almost on automatic, but that automatic has gone. Whether they're thinking about it extra, whether it's the absence of a couple of players, but it really is only a couple of players for a period of time. Yeah. And when they really, really needed it, they couldn't produce it. Of course, now, these last few seasons, like never before, that I think we can remember, a draw is like a loss. They haven't lost a game, but when you're up against this incredible Manchester City team that have been this course and distance before, Rob. They know how to bring their bus stuff at the right time. The manager knows how. They know when to put the foot down. They know when to step it up. They know when they've got to get results. Arsenal are learning all that. And, I hope it isn't going to become a really heavily criticising Arsenal for throwing it, if they don't win it, by the way, because we could have a different conversation when we're sat here in a few days' time after Wednesday night's game. But I hope it's not. They if they don't win it, then they're not ready to win it just yet. And they've come really, really close. And those last hurdles have been a little bit too difficult for them. But the learning from these young players to go through this road of it in terms of experience is valuable or invaluable. But the Man City team, I mean, to try and overcome that juggernaut of a club with tons of proven champions, you buy the best striker in the world to add to that, it's difficult. And it's just, again, last point from me really is the frustration for the Arsenal fans. They've seen them play brilliantly all along. They've just dropped way off of that, particularly in this last couple of games. And now, given how difficult it is to stay up with Man City, they're probably going to be behind in what most people think who's going to win the title.
And I think some of that, Rob, it is because of the football parlance, vernacular, way that people express that, bottling it comes out, or throwing it away, or these statements that, and where I am uncomfortable with some of the statements that are coming out. Listen, it'll be a massive blow. It'll be a real missed opportunity, because there won't be as many years that Liverpool are as bad as they are. Chelsea all over the place. Man United inconsistent. At the top of the table, Spurs kind of having the issues they've had on and off the field. The big clubs are not. It was the Leicester scenario where it almost like a full storm, and it came for them, and they took their chance. We shouldn't talk like Arsenal have lost their chance yet, because, as you say, Wednesday night could change everything and change the narrative. And with 7 games to go also in this Premier League, mate, there's a twist somewhere. I'm telling you now, there's a twist of something somewhere in 7 games. But the point I'm trying to make, Rob, is I would accept some of those terms if it was a more experienced team, if it had all the elements that required to get there, and actually they don't just do it. They're just not. This team hasn't got all the elements that we've seen in a title-winning team yet. This team is punched above its weight to be where it is at this stage. The disappointment is, I think, including us, we started to believe this might happen. This fairy tale might happen, as Leicester's fairy tale did. But the relentlessness of Manchester City and the reaction to the heat being turned on this team has shown that they're not quite ready yet. And they're not quite ready yet unless the best 11 are out on the pitch and the best 11 are playing in that automatic groove. And that's the point I think is important, that they're not that team that have all got experience, that have got this, that have got some youth, that have been down the road a bit, they've understood. This is their first big rodeo at it, mate.
I know. And they're growing. They're learning, they're growing. But let's reserve, our final kind of analysis on them.
Judgments.
There's obviously that there's been a major hiccup. When you're playing the bottom side at home, wow. I mean, they scramble big time to get the point. They almost, by the way, Rob, a couple of chances. I'm sure you saw them that just went wide.
They
almost won it.
By the way, well played, Southampton.
Yeah, I know,
Rob.
exactly.
Well played, Southampton. Well done, the Premier League, by the way. Ruben Sellers, bottom of the table, Rob. They won't go away. They won't be that one team that are cut adrift and that's one gone. There's only 2 more places. They're hanging in there, mate, with 24 points. They're only sort of 4 points. I know it's goal difference from safety. And fair play, massive game for them on Thursday. I was just looking at the phone. They're home to Bournemouth on Thursday. I mean, get a win there. They bring Bournemouth right back into it, and all of a sudden give themselves a lifeline.
Yeah, you know what? I really thought he did an excellent job in this game, Rob. And front foot, high press, first half. Second half. He made the changes. 5-4-1. We're going to sit back and try and defend this. And it almost worked. It almost really failed if they'd have lost the game. But fair play for a manager to be that brave. And we've seen many, Rob, and that's when I've been in the studio so frustrated when teams just sit way back, probably more against the Man City neighbour. Don't really try and affect the game, almost accept defeat before they started. Fair play. Ruben Sellers needed something. He's got a point out of it. In some ways, when the game finishes, Rob, it's like, well, both teams are kind of frustrated with the score, given the situations that they might have expected to be in. So, no, absolutely. Good credit to them and fair play. Yes, mate?
Just one point, mate, just before we move on, because I just wanted to ask you, because I saw a few different versions of the highlights packages and the goals, etc. And it was interesting. When Arsenal went 2-0 down, and there's no right and wrong in this, and I just wanted your feeling on... Do you remember there's a shot of Zinchenko, and he grabs all the players together and he has a word, and then Odegaard steps in a little bit awkwardly and calms him down and calms the group down. And I remember a few of our colleagues over in Sky in the US didn't like, in the UK didn't particularly like it, saying, "What's he doing? This is a team breaking up and all that." What was your take on the incident? Were you kind of comfortable with Zinchenko trying to do it? Did it look almost a bit, I don't know, schoolboy amateurish, a bit like we're showing the nerves, this is us under pressure? What was your take?
My immediate thought was, do it. This is a ridiculous start from the team. It might have looked a little bit awkward, and probably it was a little bit rushed, and maybe it didn't quite do the job. But I don't think you can start blaming a guy that's like, hang on a minute, we're 2-0 down here. What are we doing? It's craziness. So I didn't. I didn't mind it. Again, it was a little force, and it kind of broke up real quick, and it didn't really. But fair play.
I saw a few people being critical of him, Rob, and critical of it, and I just thought it was real.
When they try and do something.
I thought it's real. It's. And if he didn't do something, someone would say, they're not together.
Let it happen.
It's interesting. I just wondered what your take was on that one. But similarly, listen, they're going to have to huddle before they go out, Rob. They're going to have to be right in the tunnel, and they have to be bang on full when they go to the
one more thing for you, Rob.
Wednesday,
one more thing for you.
Okay.
A similar sort of thing where, you read stuff and you see stuff and you hear stuff and you're like, interesting. Yeah. Mikel Arteta's interview afterwards. Yeah. Now, we heard him say before, I love my players even more now. And there was they're young kids, and I'm here for a cuddle. I'm going to cuddle them. Yeah. And I love them. It got sort of like, it got applauded way back in early in the season when they had a blip, and he said, I love my players even more. Yeah. For him to come out and say it again, when they've made some pretty basic errors, Rob. The set piece goal where Chileta Sarr scores is flicked on and nobody does anything. Yeah. The goalkeeper passing the ball out, trying to force a play there. Again, they give away the ball in midfield, and Gabriel doesn't do a great job. I just thought it was the wrong time to say that. What do you think? I was expecting more of a, we're learning some lessons. We lost, our way a little bit. Like he said at West Ham, he was more critical, I felt like, at West Ham. And he was like, I'm here to give him a cuddle. Do they need cuddles at this point?
Yeah. I think he's a smart guy. I think he probably understands the group and the mentality of the group. And I probably think he feels tough love rather than, the stick, mate. I think it's one of those where he probably doesn't want to add to what's already been piled on them, to be honest. I mean, we all watched the documentary. We all saw he's a smart guy, thinks about things before, during, after games, how he's going to react, what he's going to say, who's going to speak, his little analogies and the light bulbs and all that stuff. But he's a thinker, Rob. He doesn't do things like... So I got to believe he's reading the group and probably feels, I got to show them and the others I'm all in with this. It's okay for us, and I'll take it and I'll pull us together and we'll come again. Okay. I understand what you're saying, because at times it feels a bit awkward, like I love them even more. We all see what's happened. We all... But listen... He's doing his job. He's got to get in the head. He's got 4 or 5 days to get things sorted out on and off the pitch, really, before they go to the Etihad. So, it's a good point. Okay. Listen, let's see what he's saying after Wednesday night, because after Wednesday we'll know a lot more about Arsenal, Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's chances. Yeah. Let's move it on, mate, to...
Blimey. Oh, crikey.
Yeah, again, maybe the story of the weekend, really, in some respects, certainly in terms of scoreline. Yeah. Newcastle United 6, Tottenham Hotspur 1. We were talking, third versus fifth in the Premier League. Tottenham have been a story pretty much all the season, really, Rob. From early on under Conte, whether he was playing the right football, then he was getting results, then results stopped, then there was issues, and we've seen he wants better players. He ends up leaving with the rant. Stellini gets put in place, which was a strange one when he's Conte's man. With Ryan Mason, they continue to take it forward. We haven't seen too much change at the football club. And then we get a performance like we do today, a 6-1 drubbing at a team that you're challenging for a top 4 spot. It couldn't be night and day between two teams, Rob, coming into the football game in terms of a Newcastle team that weren't off the back of a great result against Villa, but God, weren't they up for the fight, at it, first minute, pressing, energy against a Spurs team, Rob, that... And I totally get, and I think you made a good point on air about the back four. I think it's the first time in 15 months they played a back four with Porro and Perisic as fullbacks. But I get it, international quality players across the back four. Defending like that is no excuse, and I'm not saying this system helped, but your international footballers at a high level who've all played European football, we're all experienced players. Not good enough, mate. For me, not good enough.
Yeah, there's a few ways to attack this, isn't there? I think we can start by almost from the players interviewed afterwards. So Hugo Lloris is interviewed afterwards, came off at half time.
Hugo Lloris,
apparently had some kind of injury problem. Basically said, we didn't have any fight. It's a player's fault.
No fight.
What kind of stuff that you would expect.
Reaction.
Christian Stellini
not coming out.
Totally took responsibility on himself. He made a change to a back four defensively. After 5-0 in 21 minutes, he went. Well, I think it was 26 minutes. Davinson Sanchez came on, and he admitted defeat in a disastrous system change. When you've got Perisic and Pedro Porro still look like they're playing wing backs, but are full-backs in a system. So in terms of the blame of it, you could mix it between the two. And listen, it's very easy. And after the game, and we'll get on to Newcastle, how great they were in a second, but I think it's important just to try and get some thoughts out on Tottenham, Rob. And on this podcast, we've got a little bit more time than we have on the air to kind of get into some details with it a little bit. And I just got sat there thinking, this Spurs side have been battered, like, in the media with their own manager. And I'm not saying it's not deserved, Rob, some of this battering, some of the hammering they've been getting way back from Jose Mourinho being there. I said kind of the point that, God, Jose was there and couldn't get him to go over the line. They got to a certain point. I think top four, wasn't it, with them, with Jose? You got him in that area, I think. Then Nuno comes in. That's not really the right guy. And then Antonio Conte comes in to take them that little bit further and kind of failed. So he then hammered them. Now, you look through... So then you start to think, well, this team is a bunch of absolute losers. And, they shouldn't be playing in a Tottenham jersey with some of the things that's said. But, Hugo Lloris has won a World Cup. Romero just won a World Cup. I mean, you've got international players, respected players like Ivan Perisic. You've got Pierre-Emile Højbjerg that's a good character, a good personality, very important for Denmark. You've got Kulusevski. Yeah, okay, Kulusevski... maybe he's got a lot to learn. Heung-min Son's an experienced international player. Obviously, Harry Kane is as well. There's a lot of... Are we immediately saying you fire all these players, you sack all these players, you sell all these players because, they haven't been able to get to a point that the owner, the fans, the media, the managers want them to get into that top 1 and 2 and challenge for the title, and they're not quite ready or good enough, squad-wise, manager-wise, whatever you want, to get that. So everything then hammers back onto the players. Now, again, I'm not giving them, and Lee Dixon was hard afterwards saying, I'm angry, we shouldn't give them any excuse. I'm not giving them an excuse. I'm trying to get to a point, Rob, beyond they're rubbish, awful, terrible, not good enough. Why? Why, when these are international footballers, been around the block a little bit, they're good characters. I mean, Conte brought in some of these players, Jose brought in some of these players. There's got to be some other reason, Rob, of why they disappoint, they can't produce when you want them to. I just felt I don't feel for them, but it's like they seem like disillusioned bunch of players. that have tried to play this horrible, stodgy football. Hasn't worked. They then get hammered for it. They try different things. I don't know, mate. I'm just trying to get to a different part of the conversation instead of just hammering these guys. Yeah, we can all do that. It's an awful decisions, awful defending. But why, Rob? Why are these international players playing so badly?
It's a good question. It's a good question, and it's another facet to the argument, and it's probably an important one and a different take than maybe people are saying. I don't know the answers. I'm not in Tottenham and not round it enough. If I could probably point to one thing straight away, Rob, and I'll pick a line up. I think Danny Higginbottom put something out there that was similar to my thought. In terms of the guy who's in charge of the football, the manager, the coach, the head coach, whatever you call him, and the group of players that you've got, there's been no synergy since Pochettino left.
Yeah.
You've got a group of players who are better play in a different way with a distance system, and you've had people who've come in charge. You've had Conte, you've had Jose, you've had Nuno, who was a bit all over, didn't really know himself. Almost the club was too big for him. Who haven't got in tune. And it was really interesting because as you were having the discussion today and trying to get to that point, I was thinking there's also a cultural thing at this football club that's wrong. There's a cultural thing that's wrong, Rob. And my reason for saying that is, take out Eddie Howe's body of work at Newcastle. Let's take Eddie Howe had been at Bournemouth, and he left the football club when they went down. He's been out of work for 18 months, and then the Tottenham job comes up. Let me tell you that Eddie Howe would never get the Tottenham job. Culturally. Not big enough, not enough stardust, not done things in Europe, not won this, not won that, wouldn't get the job.
Yeah, he would have been brilliant for them.
Look what he's done. Look what he's done at a football club similar size, with the right culture, with the right players. You know, the first thing that come out, the stock line would be, oh, Eddie can't handle big players. Oh, the club's too big for him. Yeah. All that rubbish that you get.
Great shout.
Because culturally, Spurs think they're something else, and they have a guy who comes in who wants to win titles, who wants to change the squad, who wants to play. You know, there's nobody who comes in and goes, actually, this is not a bad group of players. I'll work with these. I might need to tinker one or two things, but there's a lot more here than I thought.
Yeah.
Everybody comes here telling you how bad the group is, how more players they want, and they play a system that doesn't suit the players. So you put players in a bad system, they look bad players.
It's a great shout, mate. And I tell you what, it's so you can almost put that down to finding the right blimmin' guy to fit the job. The great fit.
Correct.
And before the game, Rob,
it's the biggest thing they've got to do, mate.
It is.
The biggest thing they've got to do.
And when you do find that right guy, it's incredible difference you can make. I'm going to give you some examples. Manchester United were a bit of a laughing stock last year. Ralph Rangnick was in charge, going nowhere. We're all saying it's going to be 4 or 5 years before they're challenging again. You get the right guy, Eric Ten Hag, all of a sudden, it's going in the right direction. You could have said that about Liverpool. Different managers, get the right guy, Klopp, boom, things start to move. Newcastle United, fighting relegation last year, get the new guy in charge, they're now a top 4 position. I could go on. Chelsea Football Club, on the other side of things, unstable, erratic transfer behaviour, not the right manager, they're going in the wrong direction. Arsenal Football Club, Unai Emery, not quite the right fit, not the right squad. Change your manager, get the right guy in, make the clever, careful recruitment in Arteta. It's all going well. The same could happen with Tottenham. Find the right person, the right fit to take them forward. You make a brilliant point, Rob. You make a great point that Daniel Levy feels that the squad needed. And by the way, maybe when you pick Jose Mourinho on the back of Pochettino, God, we got so close. We need a winner, maybe. I get it.
Yeah,
I get why he did that. But to go again with another quick fix in Antonio Conte, again, we were like saying, this is great. He's a winner. But it hasn't worked. So now, please stop. Please stop trying with a quick fix and think of somebody that's a great fit, that's going to be a longer-term plan, that you can build a little bit.
It's got to be a build there, Rob, now.
It's got to be a build.
This football club needs a build.
It's painful to watch.
Hugo Lloris has been a brilliant goalkeeper, and whether he was injured or not, whether he come off or not, whether he's captain or not, his time's coming to an end. The Harry Kane situation at the top of the pitch has to be sorted out. Midfield creativity has to be sorted out.
Rebuild a little bit,
Full-back positions maybe need to be better. It was interesting, Rob. So I was watching the game today, and I see Kieran Trippier who's really interesting, was one of the first signings for Eddie Howe. Eddie talked about how important he is in the dressing room, what a great lad and leader he is. And I'm looking at him thinking, it was, 4 years ago? He wasn't good enough for Spurs. For whatever reason, some say there was a falling out with Poch and whatever. We don't know the background. But he leaves a football club.
Yeah.
I see on social media today was Danny Rose was commentating on the game.
Yeah.
You know what, Rob? I'd take Danny Rose and Trippier against Porro and Perisic now.
No, good shout.
Personality, character, and what you know. They've almost gone backwards. They've regressed in some of those areas where they should be strengthening.
But they're thinking they're going forward. They're thinking they take it to a next level.
They're thinking forward. Yeah. Oh, we've got this guy and this international, and this guy's got only caps for Argentina, and this one's got only caps for Croatia and the likes, and the fit of the football club, the culture in the football club is not right, Rob. And when you have those things at the base, you're going to get days like today, and it was interesting hearing Hugo Lloris, because he was really honest, at least, regardless of what you think. I know Tim made a point about, sometimes you just come back out for 5 or 10 minutes if you've got the injury, and I thought it was an interesting point. I've never even thought about it at that level. But when you get your captain coming out and talking about, like, not prepared to win 50-50s, weren't really ready, weren't up for the fight. Wow, those are things that are in that dressing room, mate. Those are things that you have together. And when you go out there and it's not there, you're building on very, very loose foundations.
Yeah, I tell you, who's got strong foundations, Newcastle United, and just quickly on them, Rob, or to switch to Newcastle United.
Wow.
I mean, one of my big pre-game kind of thought process was, could Tottenham handle the intensity of Newcastle United? We know the answer to that right now. They couldn't, of course. They'd lack the fight to be able to do that. But even so, what a team going forward. And I think Eddie Howe said afterwards, Rob, the finishing was top class. Top class finishing. I mean, yes, some of the defensive playing mistakes were pretty bad, and with the back four situation that were all over the place. But still, some of the finishing from Isak, from Jacob Murphy, got a couple of goals. Was pretty amazing. So we were surprised the Villa game last Saturday, Rob, weren't we? When Villa beat them 3-0, it was like, wow, did not see that coming. That's the way to react to it. This was seen as a playoff really for top four. I think we got our answer. Spurs, no, they ain't going to do it. And Newcastle United are going to be in there, Rob. I'm just going to follow on to my underappreciated performer, because I picked a player out of this team, and it is out of the Newcastle United team.
Yeah.
And it's a player that, I don't think anybody would ever say, one of the star players of Newcastle United is Jacob Murphy. Now, maybe easy for me to pick when he scored 2 goals. He takes advantage of some poor play, follows up, gets a tap in, then he scores from 25 yards from a difficult angle. But Jacob Murphy is somebody that, again, like you wouldn't expect him to be part of this team right now, given where they're going, given the signings that they're making, given his name, his history. I wouldn't have associated him, and maybe it's my ignorance, that he could be part of a top 4 side, Jacob Murphy. Never. That he'd be a squad player. That as Newcastle would make more, go into more windows, he might leave the club. But he, and the manager said that he loves him and his attitude. He has proven to be an important part now of this team, as others like Joe Ellington and Joe Willock. I mean, Willock's ball for the Isak goal, that's a brilliant ball.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So I just wanted
it's a De Bruyne-esque ball.
Yeah, it was a De Bruyne-esque ball. I just wanted to send out a little well done to Jacob Murphy, because again, it's nice for us to sometimes say, I have underappreciated what he's been able to do, but it's great to see him come into the side and be an important part, given he's just not a big name for the club.
It's a brilliant pick out, because as you say, when the takeover was done with Newcastle, he would probably be one of the first names you go, totally. He's not going to be there, Jacob Murphy. I mean, they're going to go and buy, they're buying Neymar, and they're buying this one, and they're buying that one. He's been so important. It's your point. The second point, Rob, which is a really good point you make, like, in top 4 teams, if he was available, Spurs wouldn't go for him. Because he's not Spurs. He's not Spurs, mate. He ain't flashy in this, but I'm telling you, he's every bit as important in your team as your Isaks and your Guimaraes and players, because he gets through his work. He takes and he's happy to be in the side. He's happy to support those players. He's happy to be part of that team and that spirit and fight for 50-50s that we didn't see from the Tottenham team. So it's a brilliant shout, Jacob Murphy. He's one of them that, as you say, you name your best Newcastle 11, you name your best Newcastle 16.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if people would even put him in that, but brilliant.
Yeah. What a game,
brilliant job.
What a
and
game.
It's a credit to Eddie Howe as well, Rob. Those players you talk of, the Willock can't be too far from England to Almiron's resurgence, Joe Ellington's
Sean
resurgence.
Longstaff. Eddie Howe talked about how much he loves him. He's a really intelligent
on a regular
player.
basis. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
So, two contrasting teams at the top of the table. So important about picking the right man in charge. We've seen what it's done at Newcastle. We've also seen where it's left Spurs. And I'll tell you what, Rob, it's funny, and it wasn't a weekend for Chelsea, but there's a few big jobs available that aren't as attractive as they maybe should be.
But that's right. But there's some big time managers that are available right now. Like right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whether it's back to Pochettino, whether it's Julian Nagelsmann, Luis Enrique. These are guys that are getting interviewed by Chelsea. Well,
correct.
Both teams hire somebody because it's not going well with your interims. It's not going well.
Somebody go and do it. Yeah, Poch's stock's just going up. I think after every interview at the moment. But we'll see how that one goes. But great win for Newcastle. Outstanding performance by Eddie Howe and his boys. Spurs Spurs Thursday night. Spurs at home to Manchester United, mate. Who's gonna? It's gonna be an interesting one as well. How the Spurs fans react to that. If they go a goal down early, that could go a little bit toxic. I heard the short talking about the board and Levy and.
He's going to be. I think we'll jump on to Daniel Levy, Rob. I think that's what we'll jump on. Rebecca asked us afterwards. Can he survive this? Like, can the manager survive this? And I'm like, well, it's awful, but does it help to fire to get rid of him now? And I just don't know. It's a mess. I'd love to see one.
I'd be thinking about I'd be thinking for me, sorry mate, is about getting the next man in and getting that right and taking my time to do that.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Get that guy started.
Right.
Let's move it on to Anfield, mate, where Liverpool ended up winning a bit of a thriller 3-2. A few more goals in this game than I would have thought, but sense that Liverpool are starting to find their form. 6 goals against Leeds midweek, 3 against a Forest team. Forest team that showed a bit of fight, can't quite find wins. I was interested in this one, mate, and I'm gonna jump in first before I let you go. In that, I was watching the game, and obviously I've kept an eye on Forest, having come up, and as a team I think we all want to, or have a feel that it'd be great to see them stay up this year. And it was interesting that Brennan Johnson was dropped to the bench, and he played Awani and Gibbs Whitemore as essential, and structured his team to be difficult to play against, compact, hard working. And I think Bex asked you, about the Johnson situation, and I think you and Tim were a little bit indifferent with it, but feeling really should be in the team. And I absolutely wouldn't say I totally disagree, but it kind of got what Steve Cooper was trying to do in that. It took me back, Rob, and I always kind of keep some things in the head where Rafa Benitez used to do a thing at Newcastle where he played for an hour for basically a 0-0, keep the game as tight as he can. Then on 60 minutes, virtually, he'd go 60 minutes, he'd throw on his attacking base players and try and play a 30-minute game where they'd have some chances. And I kind of felt Steve Cooper went somewhere down that road, like, we've done so well, and I know Johnson's getting his goals, and individually that's great, but as a team, maybe we're not getting the same, maybe defensive structure, or things aren't working as well. And I kind of didn't hate what he did, and I actually liked the idea that he was trying something. We see too many managers do same old things, and this isn't working. Leeds United, this ain't working. Well, do something else, and nothing. I kind of didn't mind what he did and what he tried, and at one point I thought, you know what, he might just end up pulling this off, and then every time they got a goal they kind of conceded again pretty soon, which hurt them in the end, and Liverpool's firepower and quality probably showed off. But I still thought there was a lot of enough encouragement for Forest to say they ain't out of it yet, they've still got a chance.
No, you're right, Rob, and this was a game just on the goals. I mean, I think all of them, maybe bar one, was all set-piece goals. So there's tons of set-piece situations where, all the goals seem to be from long throw-ins or crosses that came in, and Mo Salah's, I remember, with a lot of set-piece goals. But to go back to what he did, and you're absolutely right. We were like, Brennan Johnson, the best goal scorer, why wouldn't you have him in the side? Like, you need every, But what he did was interesting, was fascinating, and I don't want to get too much into X's and O's. But Liverpool are different now. Liverpool are different. Trent Alexander-Arnold is doing the slide into midfield one alongside Fabinho, and it's working out pretty well. Steve Cooper's ahead of that, and he played Gibbs White and Danilo, Rob. Super narrow. I know Trent's going to come in there. We're ready for that. Boom. 2v2. So Fabinho and Trent had men in their faces. Behind those two, you had Freuler and Mangala, who were up against Jones and Henderson. So that advantage that's often got for the fullback sliding in as an extra man. No, because and this is what's going to happen in football. They're going to figure out, well, and obviously City is so good. They've got so many other ways of hurting you. But that really stopped Liverpool's play down the middle. I kept thinking to Robertson and Kanouté, God, you got tons of space there. But they're in a kind of a 3 at that point, and they're a little bit more reticent to go forward.
Got to be a little bit more careful, haven't you?
It turns over. So fair play to Steve Cooper. You're right, Rob. Try something a little different. Don't let Trent go in there and dictate the game and run the game, because he can absolutely do that. And he still played well, Trent, in there, and it's definitely something they're going to go with. But I liked that. And then, you take your chances after that, and they created, and like you said, Johnson came on later on. But you're right, and that's something that I was going to mention is I like that from a coach, trying to counteract. They move into midfield, it's brilliant, inverted fullbacks and all that. Well, there should be a way to negate it or to stop it. And he did a pretty good job. They were super narrow, but I kind of liked it. And the game ended up being set pieces. I mean, it is interesting. The Trent into midfield is interesting. It does mean the jobs of Ibrahima Konate is a little different. He's got to go over and cover maybe further out than he wants to. And it also restricts, not totally, because Andy Robertson did get forward a little bit, but he's like, well, if Trent's in there, I got to be a little bit careful.
Against better teams, he might have to sit at home a little bit more, Rob.
Yeah, because Man City don't do that. Man City, Ake sits. They have 3 back there and 2 in the middle. And Liverpool and Robertson wants to make it just 2 at the back there, but
still go on.
That's your X's and O's. But I did expect Liverpool to really win strongly, and they didn't. And I think mainly because Steve Cooper did a bit of a job, and it almost worked out. But Liverpool have got good forwards. Rob Jota back looking very, very good. Scored a couple of goals. Mo Salah gets his goal. There's your three goals for Liverpool, and they get the 3 points and keep this improving vibe going. Diaz is fit. Luis Diaz is fit. You got Gakpo. You got all the front players now. I think Firmino's got an injury again, but it's starting to
he
feel
picked up
like
a bit of a knock, didn't he?
Yeah. But no, Liverpool needed that and continue on, and another 3 points, and Forest are still, scrapping to try and.
We're still fighting.
It's going to go to the end. Yeah.
Home Fulham home game's going to be important. They're home to Brighton on Wednesday night, which is a big game now for Forest to just try and hang in there and keep in touch with the teams like Leeds and Bournemouth, who are slightly above them. I think winless in 11, aren't they, or something, Forest? So it's been a bad run. But to be honest, Rob, there still looks enough football, and people look like they're up for it. They still give themselves a chance. So I was sort of felt a bit sorry for Steve Cooper, because I thought he tried to plan something out, as you said, and worked on something, and he just got outdone by the quality in the end of a Liverpool attack. Let's take it to the KP, to Leicester City, and your old mate Dean Smith, mate, working wonders. Never in doubt. In Smithy we trust, my friend. Leicester 2, Wolves 1. Castagna getting the winner after Iheanacho scores from the penalty. Wolves take a 1-0 lead early in the game, but Leicester come back into it and get themselves a 2-1 win. A huge win, important win. Get Dean Smith tenure off to a better start after the City game.
Yeah, I think interesting kind of headline for me was, you look at the team sheet, like, wow, like all the attackers are playing. Rob Vardy started. Patson Daka started, and Iheanacho started. Tete started. You still got Tielemans in midfield, so I don't mind that. Front foot for Dean Smith. They get the job done. Vardy with that quick pace to get that penalty. I'll tell you what was interesting, Rob. The final whistle. Of course, they win the game. There was quite the celebrations, quite the relief at KP Stadium. And the coaches are going crazy together. It's a big win for them. And we've said it before. Sometimes it's about momentum at this point in the season. Just find a little bit of something to get 2 or 3 wins to get you out of it, and this is a big step it's a big step for Leicester.
Yeah.
That was a big step for them.
Oh, massive.
Massive. For confidence, just try and get a little bit of confidence to get them out of it. So, no, well done, Dean Smith, and that's a very much needed victory for Leicester City and a brave team selection to go and take the game to Wolves.
Yeah, and 2 things on that one, Rob. Leicester go to Leeds.
Oh, blimey.
I think that
Tuesday?
is on.
Is it Tuesday?
Yeah,
I haven't got my list.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
Tuesday.
there's some big games coming
Tuesday
up midweek.
Leicester go to Leeds. I mean, it's a Leeds team. We know that they're not in great shape. We'll talk about them next. But they go there. And the other good thing for Dean Smith, mate, I was thinking about. You know what happens after he keeps Leicester up? Saves him from relegation. You know what happens the year after, don't you?
Go with that.
You know what happens the year after. Dino wins the Premier League. That's why he was celebrating. But no, great win for them. Listen, just to be back in, to stay in there is going to be all hands on deck. But I've always got the feeling that if he can organise them a little bit, and I think he's got the personality that can connect with those guys, I just think there's enough at Leicester to get themselves out of trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go to Fulham and Leeds, because Leeds are in disarray at the moment, mate. Javi Gracia has not been able to stop the rot so much at Leeds, and they went to Craven Cottage and came out second best again. Fulham had much more possession, didn't necessarily turn that into too many goal-scoring chances. Maybe Mitrovic out was a bit of a blow, but they did get the goals through Wilson, Pereira. Got the second before Bamford toes one in and tries to give Leeds a bit of hope. But it ends up another defeat for Leeds United. Javi Gracia. I read an interview, Rob, last week before the Liverpool game, actually, and he was saying he spends 12 hours a day at the training ground. He's working on all kinds of things. And he said, I've never felt as stressed in my life. He said, it's like the worst feeling I've ever had. This is before the game. Yeah. They then get beat 6-1. They then go to Fulham and get beat 2-1. I do feel a little bit for him, like he's a bit of a deer in the headlights, rabbit in the headlights, in terms of not quite knowing what to do or what to stop. And it was, again, I did a little bit of reading up and read a couple of articles, and people are suggesting that the Bielsa kind of style of play and processes are so ingrained in the football club that no one's really been able to, Jesse Marsh tries to, you half plug some gaps that maybe you saw and try and tinker your way out of a bit of trouble. But it's so inbred in many of these players that it almost feels like it needs something bigger to happen, something more, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to look at Leeds and say defensively they're just all over the place. The midfield support in front of it is virtually non-existent. I was with McKennie and Rocker against Liverpool. May as well have been sitting with me in the studio, mate, in terms of resistance. There's a bit of threat up front with pacey forwards and, Bamford and Rodrigo if they can get goals. But there ain't a lot to hang your hat on to say this is going to keep us out. And I feel, and I heard the Leeds fans line now is, we're hoping there's 3 worse teams than us.
Yeah.
And I always think, when you get to we're hoping there's 3 worse teams than us line, you bang in trouble, by the way. You bang in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to be fair to the manager, he made a couple of changes to the back 4, Rob, which I think were better.
Yeah.
Max Verber and Liam Cooper came in to stiffen up the back 4. I think you make a valid point about the midfield protecting that back 4. We know that there's a little bit of aliveness about them in general. That's how the team was built, to be energetic, to be youthful, to be quick, and to be creative, which, to be fair, I mean, their goals, they scored more goals than Chelsea, I think, like 10 more goals than Chelsea, so they've shown that. But it is about balance. But the balance was always the thing with Bielsa. Crazy, like, we're just going to attack, and then they started having problems. Jesse March makes little tweaks, still very, very much attack-minded. Now, Gracia's gone all the way back, and it's still not working. What worries me more than anything, Rob, if Leeds United lose, and I didn't see it in this game, that confidence and energy. The energy to attack and to press and to close down. Yeah, that's what we enjoyed watching Leeds United. Yeah. It's almost like they were this crazy free spirit under Bielsa. They've slowly been, because they got hammered, they're wide open, they get pulled everywhere on man-to-man marking and all that. And there's some validity of that with the results that dropped off. But they're losing that kind of like that fun aspect of their game to now, where I'm looking, God, they've peeled it right back. And maybe that's what has to happen. I still think, I don't see any improvement from Jesse Marsh. And in Jesse Marsh, what they did have was spirit and a manager that was enthusiastic. We saw it last year. Gracia, and maybe I'm changing my tune, given some results, but I thought his calmness initially was good for Leeds, some stability, but now it's gone looks a bit dour, and they've been slapped around. I mean, they lost 4 to Arsenal, 5 to Palace, 6 to Liverpool, now 2 here to Fulham. 6, so I don't know. I think you're right. I think they need others to have a nightmare for them, because I don't see much more unless they can turn it around. What have they got? Rob? So it's Bournemouth away Tuesday, or is it Leicester? I got Fulham.
No, it's Leicester at home, isn't it?
It's Leicester home Tuesday. Bournemouth away on the Sunday. Yeah. So it's Fulham at home on Tuesday.
2 massive
Leicester
games
at home on
in
Tuesday. Sorry.
2.
Bournemouth away. So that's this, and then after that it gets harder.
Yeah.
So big week.
Yeah.
Big week for Leeds.
They need a minimum 4 points from those 2 games, mate.
Yeah.
Minimum 4 points. And as you say, if that energy starts to go, I'm just a bit concerned, and this kind of falls more on the team than the fans, that playing at home can become difficult if that kind of form and mistakes and confidence is low. That great atmosphere that's there, those fans that we know are going to turn up regardless, sometimes makes it harder for you.
Yeah,
Rob.
but I think at this point, Rob, that I know what the Leeds fans will want to. Yeah, I agree with that. But given the amount of games left, they got to find a way to get behind them. They got to make a big atmosphere. Like
I'm not saying they won't get behind them, but sometimes, Rob, I just think these players on the pitch, and I've been in situations where they get fearful of the situation, don't want the ball. Stand next to somebody, so I'm marked. Oh, I can't have it. But you get all those situations when nobody wants to be the guy who makes a mistake. Nobody wants to be the guy who loses the ball, it gets turned over, and you might get thinking again. So people don't try as much, don't make themselves as available. It's going to be really difficult, like you say. Hopefully home form is good enough and the home fans are good enough. A bit like Everton, I assume. We're looking at one of those scenarios where it might just push them through. Before we move on, my friend, I've got my underappreciated performer of the week. And he's a Fulham player. Again, probably not a star name. He's an American international. Now, if I said name me the American internationals in the Premier League, we start with Pulisic, and we probably go Brendan
Aronson,
Tyler Adams, and then we'd probably go McKennie, and we'd go Aronson, and we'd go Tim Ream, but we wouldn't go Anthony Robinson. And we wouldn't go Anthony Robinson, Robbie Mustoe, but very quietly, in the space of this season, he has shown a level of consistency. He's a fully fledged international, big part of the US men's national team, and probably will be through to 2026. He's only 25 years of age. He's a young man, Rob, who I didn't really know his background that much, but started in Everton's academy, went out on loan as a young pro to Bolton, eventually went to Wigan. From there, he went permanently. Wigan got relegated. Fulham picked him up for around $3 million in 2020. He's now established himself in the Fulham first team. He was instrumental in both the Fulham goals, having a hand, one with interception, one with his cross into the box. He's as fit as a fiddle. He's committed. He's an important player for Marco Silva. And the other thing I just wanted to say about him, Rob, and when we go underappreciate, sometimes it's like the Matomas or the Gross or these young players who've got all this ability and we haven't quite seen it yet and it's going to come through and this. Sometimes where I feel with Anthony Robinson, I kind of put myself in a similar situation, he's making the most of what he's got. He's absolutely making the most of his physical talents, his football talents, his technical talents. He's sort of got himself in a level where he's now I would say proven Premier League player. I get the sense if Fulham were ever to go down, he'd be somebody that you'd look at and go, he could come and do. He's got good size, he's got good delivery, he looks like he's a chirpy character around the dressing room. And sometimes it's not always about those little ability or here's one with potential. Sometimes it's about giving everything you've got every week and showing that actual level of consistency sometimes is better than those star names who go 9 out of 10 and then 3 out of 10. Somebody who's a 6 or 7 out of 10 every week, and Anthony Robinson's that guy, and he's going to be my underappreciated performer of the week.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I kind of like it. I mean, talk about he's making himself a Premier League quality left back. He's very, very quick, and I think in a team, and we all do it. You're drawn to the Andres Pereira was a great signing. Then you bring in Willian from Chelsea and the experience that he gets, and just different players. Instead of thinking about the left back and Anthony Robinson, super quick. And finally on him, I mean, how many great wingers are there in the league, Rob? There's a lot of great, quick, talented, skillful wingers that he's having to deal with every single week. So, no, I think it's a good shout. He obviously teams up really well. Inside him is Tim Ream, of course, his international partner at centre-back on the left side of defence. So, yeah, when you're consistent and you don't get injured much and you play week in, week out and your team is in the top half of the table, whatever they're at now, close to it, that's a great season. So it's a good shout. Yeah, Anthony Robinson. Ninth, well done. Well done.
Anthony Robinson, under performer of the week. Let's wrap up just a couple of other results. Crystal Palace 0, Everton 0. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was back in the picture for Everton. Obviously, they're going to need him to start getting goals. But another game without defeat for Palace. That's 3 wins and a draw. 10 points for Roy Hodgson since he's taken over. Has got Palace pretty safe. 37 points now, 12th in the table. I suppose away from home for Everton, it's another point gained, Rob, on the route. I mean, we'd obviously have loved the 3, but you take the point and, keeps the gap nice and tight on those above you.
Yeah, you do. It's not a bad point, is it? Palace away right now, the way that they're playing, the goals that they're scoring. Yeah. You're picking up points. You get the confidence from that, from not losing the game. It helps. Yes, of course. Everton fans might. Then he wins, and they'll say that I need the 3 points, but I think that's a decent point. They'll crack on. And Sean Dyche was asked afterwards, in your bottom 3, he said it doesn't matter now. It matters where we are after week 38 in the season, game 38. So again, he's used to this. It's pressure. It's tense. It's got to be a positive that Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Rob. I think he played almost all the game. I think he came off maybe late, around 90th minute, whatever. But he is going to be important, and he looked okay. And if he can stay fit and start the last, whatever it is, half a dozen games or whatever, that's got to be important. Yeah. So Sean Knight should be happy with that. And 0-0, that's a good point. That's a good point against Palace side that are doing pretty blooming well at the moment.
Absolutely. A couple of other results. David Moyes continues to push West Ham in the right direction. Another 4 goals, 4 against Ghent midweek in the Europa Conference League, 4 against Bournemouth. And our friend Declan Rice found the back of the net again, maybe reacting to criticism. Remember, I think it was on the show we talked a couple of weeks about his productivity and that little bit extra. He's got a couple of goals now to add to that, and is in some form, as are West Ham. And all of a sudden, West Ham look like I think we both felt would pull away from danger because of what the structures and the processes and the way that David Moyes works, and so is the case. They're now up to 13th on 34 points. Another few more points, and they'll be almost guaranteed.
Do you feel any differently? I know you sort of weren't sure whether the club would continue with him. Do you feel like if he finishes strongly, he might be okay? I'm not feeling
he might be okay, but the reasons I was saying that a change might come may be more to do with style of football. Now, listen, if he continues to score 3 and 4 goals every week, people might say, what, style isn't so bad. But I just get the sense people are thinking about a longer term, whether that's this season, whether it's another year down the road. I just feel like West Ham and David Moyes at some point are going to come to a natural conclusion, and there's going to be a change in the style of football as much as the way. But listen, David Moyes deserves as much time as he needs. He's earned it with what he's done in the Europa League and the Europa Conference League, what he's done now, making sure this team stay in the Premier League. And as we know, Rob, ask Chelsea and Tottenham, it's not easy to find good managers. Yes, there's a few around, and that might be the thing that that West Ham might look at. Good managers who you don't have to pay for, don't have to get out of contracts, could move into the football club. That might be something West Ham look at. But listen, David Moyes is a survivor, mate, and well played to him this weekend, because that's another great win. Puts a bit of pressure on Bournemouth. And we had Brentford 1, Aston Villa 1. 2 teams probably exceeded their expectations, certainly Brentford this season. Ivan Toney gets his 19th Premier League goal of the season. Douglas Luiz gets one for Aston Villa, 1-1 draw. I think it's every game now since Unai Emery's taken over, Villa have scored in, Rob. Right. Some strange stat, which it's never necessarily his strength, you'd say, in making sure goals, but he's definitely got this team that was really struggling under Steven Gerrard, not looking dangerous in the attacking third, with threats all over the pitch. And another good point on the road for Aston Villa. It keeps them up there in 6th place. Brentford dropped to 10th.
Yeah, not much
Okay,
time.
mate, let's, before we close up, FA Cup. We had it. FA Cup, 2 big games over the weekend, the 2 Manchester clubs involved. Do you want to start with City, the Riyad Mahrez day?
Yeah, I didn't see all of it. I saw, because obviously it's tough to work the shows and see all the games and prep for them and see everything. Certainly saw the Brighton Man United game. We got off air and I managed to see that game. But no, of course we did the goals and 3-0. It looked. I saw some quotes from I think the Sheffield United manager saying that wow, there's such a difficult team to play against because they have the ball. They absolutely dominate the ball. And 3-0. I mean, they make a couple of changes, Rob, but it's still an incredibly talented team that they can always put out. So they coast into the FA Cup final. But no, did you take a good look at this one? Did you get to see it?
I didn't have a great look. I had a look. I mean, Sheffield went in a sort of 3-5-2, plenty of bodies in midfield. We're going to make it difficult for City to play. But City played in this kind of strange sort of 3-4-3 kind of situation with Gomez floating on that left-hand side. That just made them different. As you say, they have so many ways they can open you up, Rob. They have so much possession, your concentration. And Sheffield United were doing what you'd expect and hope them to do for many periods. But then, it's funny how with this City team, innit? The team can play so well, everybody, and then somebody has a day, doesn't they? It's generally been Haaland's day, or Jack has his day, or KDB has his day. It's Riyad Mahrez's day.
Yeah, great day.
Who's kind of been in and out a little bit lately.
Yeah.
And then a hat trick. Just that's what kills you with this team. Yeah. They bring Bernardo Silva's been in now. Yeah. He comes in the other week, in the Champions League and is brilliant for and it just Foden's back in the ranks, which must be not great news for everybody else in the league and in Europe. So it was Riyad Mahrez Day. I think he's first player for many years to score a hat trick in the semi-final, gets Man City into the final and closer. Well, one part of that treble, Rob, that they're looking for.
Yeah, I mean it's I guess we haven't spoke about it as much as maybe we should have done. I mean they're favourites to win the Premier League title. Of course, an FA Cup final is a toss-up. Maybe the hardest bit is the Real Madrid part in the Champions League, but we'll monitor it. But as you said, like Bernardo Silva plays in wide right, you switch out for Riyad Mahrez, comes in and scores a hat-trick in the semi-final of the FA Cup. I mean, it's quite remarkable how not only is the squad talented, but everybody's chomping at the bit to play, and when they play, they do great things. It's a testament, of course, to Pep and keeping everybody happy and mixing around the game time. So no, City make it through to the final, as do my friend Manchester United. It was difficult work for them at Wembley today. They
really
go through, I think it was 7-6 on penalties. I know it went
7-6 in the end on penalties. Yeah, Solly Marsh hit one over, didn't he? And Lindelof scored to get United through.
I thought.
Listen, it's not often I've seen Manchester United play in a cup semi-final of any nature, and we're pretty happy to allow at times had to let the opposition have more possession, Rob, and dominate the ball. It was quite eye-opening, and Brighton's build-up play at times, and they were, without doubt on the eye, the better team. Yes. Couldn't find the back in net. Had one or two opportunities where they just either took an extra touch, poor decision, and Leicester. But I think, like Pep said, their build-up, Rob, at times to get anywhere towards the last third is, as different and as many facets and dimensions as I've seen for a long time. No,
and we've grown to really enjoy this team, particularly this season, where it's taken a bit further on. Even more risks, but calculated risks in terms of De Zerbi. Pascal Gross at right back. Estupiñán, Rob, when they're building up, they're really, really high. They're really, really high in advanced as fullbacks. They don't mind playing out. I got to say, and maybe I should have had as my underappreciated player, but I tell you, Rob, who's that? Lewis Dunk. How good is he, by the way? How good is he with the ball? How good is he defending? He's been there forever. Like what a good performance. There aren't many better
centre-backs at the moment playing out the back than Lewis Dunk, by the way.
No, absolutely right. And the way that they play, They, in the first half, I'm watching the game, I'm like, wow, yeah, this is really happening. We know that United like to possess. You look at the midfield of Casemiro, Bruno and Eriksen, I'm like, wow, this is a strong side. Martial's playing, Rashford's playing, Anthony's playing. There's a strong side, apart from the back four. Yes, Man United fans, we know that some of your best defenders are not playing right now.
Yeah.
Luke Shaw continues to do a brilliant job, I feel, when he plays centre-back. But the football from Brighton, they, in the first 45 minutes, Rob, they definitely made De Gea work more. Both goalkeepers were worked.
Absolutely.
But De Gea had to make better
Sanchez come
saves.
with a couple of saves.
I thought second half was a little bit more stronger for Manchester United. Rob, I thought they came a little stronger in the second half.
After the first 10, 15 minutes, I thought Brighton started.
Brighton came back
they
again.
got into the game.
Yeah, Brighton came back. And, I felt... I'm not sure what the expected goals was, but at the end of it, I'm thinking, I think probably Brighton were probably the best side over the piece, but it comes down to penalties and pretty good blooming penalties apart from Solly March. Solly March had a good game. I thought Solly March had a really good game. His penalty was the
he's a good player.
Was the poor one, but wow, what
yeah, it's a shame. It was a shame it had to be lost that way.
Yeah,
but proud day for Brighton. I'm sure the fans are happy. And at one point, Rob, I was watching the Brighton fans and FA Cup semi-final, playing at Wembley, having more ball than Man United. And I know, listen, it's about getting to the final because that's the big thing, and obviously you're going on to win it if you can. But it must be, when you lose Graham Potter and you think maybe, what's going to happen to us? Yeah. Wow, they're in such a great spot at the moment. Yeah. Such a great spot at the moment.
I mean, just a few players, Rob.
Yeah, it must be great.
I just, and what's sad about this, and we've seen this with other teams and in Premier League and in other. I'm thinking of the Monaco side with Bernardo
Leicester
Silva.
a little bit.
They're going to get. The big clubs are going to come in for some of their players. Moises Caicedo looked $1 million in midfield. Caicedo looked really good.
Yeah, he's good, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
good.
Another example of brilliant recruitment. Julio Enciso, the 19-year-old Paraguayan, Rob, that looks silky playing in behind Danny Welbeck. They got so many good performers. Pascal Gross is a right back, so versatile. But I just think again that Enciso, you talk about players to watch for the future. Silky little midfield player that's going to play more and more. And there's more to come from Brighton. There's more to come. Buonanotte is another player that.
And that's why I think, Rob, that at some point they fatten them up. I think they get them on decent contracts like they've done with Caicedo. And at some point, if the right money comes in, only with the right money, then they sell. And they've got others in the conveyor belt. It's a proper recruitment system that they've got set up. And fair play to him. Just one point, mate. I wanted to just ask you about this because I had a bit of a debate on a bit of a radio show just on the Wembley semi-finals, and it was more based on the Man United Sheffield United final. Now I don't know if you saw much of the game, but there was a lot of picture shots where there's a lot of empty seats down on the lower stand, and I heard quite an interesting debate, and I kind of got both sides of the argument, but I quite understood why there was a few sort of Sheffield United and Manchester United fans saying, why are we still having to travel all the way down to Wembley for a semi-final? There's two clubs in the north, that we've got all the travel, we've got all the expense. Why can't that be played on a neutral northern ground that would sell out 50, 60,000? You'd have a brilliant atmosphere, and we save Wembley for the finals. And we both played in FA Cup semi-finals, and both were neutral grounds. That's how it was back in the day. Wembley was the day you go. And I know now they play Wembley for the revenues, and FA want extra money and all that kind of stuff. But I'm kind of for the, Let's take it back to two neutral grounds. And why should Sheffield United fans and Man United fans have to travel? That could be done at Villa Park or somewhere up in the north of the country that can house those fans. Yeah. They'd fill it out. There'd be a brilliant atmosphere. They've got an hour maybe to travel instead of all the way down to London, all the expense, all the way getting back with trains and rail strikes and all those things. Yeah. Where do you stand with the semi-finals and Wembley?
Yeah, don't like it. I don't like, apart from the travel, where you got two northern clubs, it makes sense to have it north. But I just don't like the fact that, goodness, and we can go back, we can talk of this as kids watching this FA Cup final at Wembley. It was the game in English football. It was the game. The Premier League then, or Division 1 it was called, of course, was important. But the FA Cup final was the game. There was coverage from the first thing you got up in the morning all the way through. It was an incredibly exciting game to watch. And now, to water that down to play teams to get to. It was always to get to Wembley. I got to Wembley. I played at Wembley, where I dreamed about. I watched games at Wembley, the old Wembley Stadium, and I got to play there, and it was incredibly special because it was the final. You know, would I feel the same way if I've already played there in a semi-final? So I'm with you 100% on that. Again, Rob, and we might not be 100% correct, but there's a thought out there that it is about revenue for paying for Wembley and the Football Association,
for the FA,
which is a bit of another money taking over, and you know, I hate this more and more. The game is about money and who can make money from this and more games and everything else. So there is a bit of that, I think, paying for the new Wembley Stadium. But I'm with you. Let alone the fact that it makes total sense to play it. I think we played a League Cup final replay at Hillsborough. I played a semi-final, I think, at Villa Park. I definitely played at least. I played one at Old Trafford. We lost to Arsenal in around about 2000s in the FA Cup semi-final at Old Trafford. So there's tons of. Obviously, you wouldn't play this on Old Trafford, but there are options, and leave Wembley to the final. Yeah. Well, good point. Yeah. And I'm absolutely on board. I think it's just disappointing.
Okay, mate. Well, disappointment. I think that's what's swirling around at the Emirates at the moment. 3 draws in the last 3 games mean that, simply put, Arsenal have to go to the Etihad on Wednesday and win, while Spurs, they got a spanking by Newcastle in an embarrassing performance at St James's Park. We're going to be back on Wednesday. That's Wednesday, April 26th. To review what most people are calling the biggest game of the season. Man City host Arsenal, and there's lots of other important games during the midweek that we'll touch on all areas of the table. But for now, I'm Earl, he's Musty, together with the 2 Robbies. Thanks for watching and listening. Be safe, stay healthy. It's a good night from me.
And it's good night from him. Good night.
Good night.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.